Hello and welcome to Spire Tabletop Gaming does particle physics. With me, certainly not a physicist, and this excellent button-shy game on a quest to detect a pentaquark. First, let's start with some theory. What is a quark? Quarks are tiny little elementary particles, which for convenience we put on these lovely cards, and they come in 3 colors: red, green, and blue, and 6 flavors: bottom, top, which is not here, is in an expansion, up, down, strange, and charm. And each of them has an opposite or an anti-quark with its anti-color and anti-flavor. For example, this one, anti-blue and anti-bottom. A peculiar thing about quarks is that they love hanging out together with other quarks. You will never find them alone. And you will find them in pairs with color and its anti-color, regardless of flavor, or in triplets, one of each of the colors, like red, blue, and green, or one of each of the anti-color, anti-red, anti-green, and anti-blue. And a pentaquark is a rare combination of 4 quarks and 1 antiquark, like so. Up, up, down, charm, and anti-charm, which is also depicted on the cover of the game. But during the game you will not be able to find a set of 5 quarks or 4 quarks and 1 antiquark. You will need to find together a set of 3 quarks, one of each of the color, which is called a baryon, and a set of 2 quarks, which is a quark and its anticolor antiquark, which is called a meson. But now, enough with all this physics, let's see how the game plays. The game consists of only 18 cards, which is a characteristic of most button-shy games, and you have 3 Annihilate cards, double-sided, which you can put aside for now. They're gonna come into play later on. And the remaining 15 cards are your quarks with their anti-quarks. Now, to set the game up, you need to make sure that all of your cards have their quark side facing up, not their anti-quark side. And once you have that, you can shuffle the deck. Then you roughly split the deck in half. You flip one half and you shuffle again, creating your beam deck, which you put on a side. Your play area is divided in different sections. You have your beam deck here, your collider section here, the detector down here, which is where you're trying to detect the pentaquark, and if you do so, you win the game immediately. The background section up here, and the discard pile here. Each turn has 2 phases, the beam phase and the collider phase. In the beam phase, what you need to do is you need to fill up the collider with the top 3 cards from the beam deck. You don't flip them, you just take them and place them into the collider. And then the collider phase starts. And this phase is all about deciding where the cards will go, but you must do so by following a specific sequence. First, you choose the card that goes in the background, then the card that goes in the detector, and then the last card goes in the discard pile. You still follow the same sequence even if there are fewer than 3 cards in the collider. For example, if you have only 2 cards, 1 must go in the background and 1 must go in the detector, and none will go into the discard pile. Same for 1 card. This card will only go in the detector and must go in the detector. And these decisions will be crucial in determining which cards will get removed from the game, or discarded, or kept for the subsequent turns, as we'll see in the refresh phase. Let's go through a couple of turns to see how it actually works. So we have now three quarks in the collider. We need to decide which one goes in the background, which one goes in the detector, and which one goes in the discard pile. So let's say this one goes in the background, this one goes in the detector, and this one goes into the discard pile. And that was the collider phase. Now another turn, beam phase. We go with 3 cards again. And now collider phase, again decisions. So let's say we put this one in the background, this one in the detector, and this one in the discard pile. Now something up here happened which you are trying to avoid. Here you have a quark down with an anti-down anti-quark. Now regardless of color, those two now cancel each other out, and by the rules they will get destroyed, so they get put out of the game. So it's one thing you need to be aware of, and this works only if these quarks are free, so if they're not color confined, and at this point in time they are not color confined, so now those two get destroyed and put out of the game. Now let's take another turn. Let's go with the beam phase again. And now let's see how the color confinement works. So again, I will need to make decisions. I'll say I'll put the blue up here, the anti-blue down here, and the anti-green in the discard pile. Now down here I have a triplet. I've got anti-red, anti-green, and anti-blue. So now I can color confine them, like so. And by the way, you can rearrange your color confinements as you wish at any point in the detector and in the background, so they're not locked forever like that. You can, for example, if later on you get a different anti-blue in the detector, for example, you can decide to swap those two and keep this one as a free quark and this one color confined with the other anti-colors. The refresh phase starts when the beam deck has been depleted and you place the last few cards in background, detector, and discard pile. And say that this is the situation when that happens. You just need to follow a few steps. The first step is looking at the detector, and any free quark in the detector, for example those two, those that have not been color confined with other quarks, they get discarded. But also something that is useful to know is that you can decide to split up a set of color confined quarks to force them to be discarded. But be careful, because it could be that by doing that you then cancel one of them out with one of the other free quarks that you've got in the detector, meaning that you will need to eliminate those cards. But say that we don't do that, say that we keep our color confinement here, so at the moment we can discard those two free quarks. Then you move to the background, and in the background what you do is you discard all the color confined quarks. So this is a free quark, so we don't touch it. Those two have been color confined, you got red and anti-red, so you pick them up, you don't flip it, you just pick them up as they are and you put them in the discard pile. And lastly, you destroy any free quark in the background. So in this case, this quark is gonna be eliminated from the game. And now the Annihilate cards come into play, because once you've done all of those few steps in the refresh phase, you need to add one Annihilate card in your discard pile. Then pick up your discard pile, shuffle, remembering which way was up, because once you've done shuffling, you flip the deck and start again. As per their lovely name, Annihilate cards will not help you. They will eliminate cards. They will put cards out of the game. And how does that work? Well, you still do your turn phases. So the beam phase, you place 3 cards in the collider. But now, before you can move on to the collider phase, you need to resolve the Annihilate event. And I believe there are two ways. There's standard rules and advanced rules. Standard rules says that if an Annihilate card is in the collider, before you can move to the collider phase, you must destroy a free quark either in the background or in the detector, and then you discard the Annihilate card. While the advanced rules, I believe they tell you that if you don't have free quarks in the background or detector, you must destroy one of the free quarks in the collider. Now you can see that after 3 rounds you will have 3 Annihilate cards in your deck, forcing you to eliminate cards, drastically reducing your chances to detect a Pentaquark. Tracking cards and knowing what happens to them in the refresh phase, for example knowing that all of your discarded cards will come back facing the other way the next round, it's only part of the puzzle, because the other aspect is actually pursuing a viable Pentaquark set. For example, say that we manage to color confine 3 quarks in our detector, say a red down, a green up and a blue up, so we are more than halfway there to detect a Pentaquark. What we need next is just a pair of quarks with a charm and its anti-charm. And say we are lucky, we manage to get a blue charm in our detector. What we need next is an anti-blue anti-charm card. But guess what? It's at the back of this card. So actually, this set is impossible to achieve. And I'm gonna stop here explaining what's possible and what's not possible, because I found it as an interesting aspect of the game to work out myself. So I will let you work it out yourself. That's all for me, and if you want to try out Pentaquark, you can find the print and play or retail version on the Button Shy Games website. Until next time, keep gaming!